This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Oscar Vasquez. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube at the moment. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
Oh, you know what? Thanks for having me, Phantom. Thank you so much. I'm excited to bring some massive value and information to all the listeners today.
Yeah, we do want to let people know that we do have your link, statedocprep.com/checkout dash page. That's not clickable at the moment, but once the podcast is published on platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and all the other ones, you'll be able to click through on that and go right to your URL. So
Excellent.
a couple of things we ask any guest before we get to the heart of your story is like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me is I've been in the real estate industry for over 20 years and helping people is just something that's come natural to me. I got into the real estate business because my mother got taken advantage of on a hard money loan, and they had all kinds of fees. And I swear that like I wanted to create a crusade to come out and really help people and to understand the real estate space. And I got into estate planning because every homeowner in America needs to have a living trust or they go to probate or so. And after seeing hundreds of families lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity to attorneys and court and fees, we created the software at estate.prep to be able to help families do it at the most economical price, with unlimited updates. So that's kind of gave us the motivation and the personal satisfaction, and along the way we make a little bit of and we make a living at it.
I think it's real important what you're teaching because a lot of people probably feel like, well, I'm not a big billionaire, so I don't need something like that. I just have my life insurance and my beneficiaries there. That's probably as far as they plan out.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people do, and I always tell people, you know, it's that is probably the biggest misconception or what they misperceive, that an estate plan is for the ultra wealthy and for the wealthy. And maybe years and years ago, that was probably what was perceived, and now it's for everybody that has young children or that is a homeowner or everybody that has an estate plan that wants to take control. Right now, every state, let me go two steps back. Every state has a minimum requirement before it can go to probate. Right. So if you have a bicycle and you have a car, then, and it's worth under $60,000, the DMV will probably transfer it to your kids, or it'll transfer it to, your heirs and transfer it. However, if it's a classic car and it's $150,000 car, or it's a car collection or a watch collection or something of massive value, like in California, everything that's over $66,000 goes to probate. Over 108, and every home in California is over 184,000. So, and that is the threshold of who needs to have that. So when you go back and say who has an estate, all of us have an estate because we all have things that we can't take with us. We all have a couple of bucks, one or two, it doesn't matter, small or big, it's still yours.
Mm-hmm.
One, two, we all have things. They may not have no value to other people, but to us, they have more value. Some of us have more collectibles and some have a little bit less and a little bit more, but everybody has an estate. And another biggest misconception is that most people say, I don't have an estate plan because they can do whatever they want with it. But what they don't understand, if it meets the threshold, the government decides for them.
Mm-hmm.
The government decides what happens to your stuff, like
Yeah.
what happens to your house. And then along the way, they charge you to help them decide what happens to your things, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I went and I because I'm a musician, right, and I'm a
Oh,
podcaster.
okay.
I have a lot of like online content or you know like virtual kind of content because now music is all like WAV files. It's all like
Right.
MP3s, MP4s, right? My podcast is MP4s, but I've got thousands of episodes, right? I've got over 4,000 like copyrighted BMI published songs that I would hand
Wow.
down to my daughter. Like I have 4,000 published songs through my publisher and through a BMI registered in a music group. So, I have like estate plan to make sure that my wife or my daughter gets it. Like any of
Right.
the royalties, I get royalties from the content. Like I get royalty checks coming in. And so that's the content on top of the house and whatever my comic book
That's
companies
correct.
do.
Yeah, we call those. Yeah, no, no. It's funny that you should say that because up to about a year and a half ago, right before the pandemic, nobody was putting their Facebook and their social media accounts on their estate plan. Now people are putting them because when you pass, if you don't give them the login and password, Facebook will lock your account and that stuff stays there. They're
Yeah,
there, and
it's
it's for
theirs.
free.
Well,
It's free to
they
get it.
make money off of it anyway, but,
But,
if any commissions you were getting, they won't go to the other people.
yeah, so they don't assign it. So assigning it and putting that asset login and password, or a lot of people are doing it just so they can have so the beneficiaries have assets or their kids, right? When I
Mhm.
say beneficiaries, I mean your kids or your
Yeah,
loved
yeah.
ones. That so they have access to all the memories that you had, and they can either download it, make a file, or
Yeah,
be
'cause
able
that's
to
important. Because
access.
if you're just a regular person, it might just be memories or moments or events, like but if
And
you're actually like, influencer, like you have a
imagine
YouTube
that.
Facebook channel, you got a YouTube podcast, you got, like, whatever you're doing, the influencers, they got their Instagram channel, they got their
Yeah,
TikTok channel,
yeah,
like, they're putting all that stuff out, and they might be monetized, and if they
right.
don't put that if they're monetized and they're getting money off of that, and they don't put that down.
Yeah, so those assets. So one those assets. So I'll share a story. I just did a guy that has I haven't looked into it, but he said it's called a faceless YouTube channel that is monetized, and he has like 13 channels, and he creates videos with AI, and he started doing this like 5 or 6 years ago. So he ended up putting when I helped him take those channels and put those into the living trust and then create retirement accounts for them. Those channels, there's videos that he makes money on that he created 3 4 years ago, and
Mhm.
he still makes
Yeah, they're still
two
coming in.
three four $5 a month off of that video that he did 2 3
Yeah, well, I've
years
been a
ago.
podcaster since 2016, so my
Oh,
content
okay.
is out there since 2016, so it's out there, that many years, and it's sitting
Right,
on, multiple channels. It's on Apple, it's on YouTube, it's on TikTok, it's
right.
on different places, so, yeah, you do have to make sure and then in terms of your music, all these streaming services, but your BMI tracks, like, your publisher, and if
Sure.
you're part of a music pro organization, they send you royalties, and you gotta make sure that gets transferred too.
Yeah, that's correct. So that will be part of the. We'll talk about that in the funding portion of an estate trust, so an estate, or AKA the legal term. The document is called a living trust, but the legal term for identifying is called estate planning. But the document is called the living trust. Now, I want to give you as simple as a definition of what is a living trust. A living trust is a contract between you, the grantor, and your kids, the beneficiaries, or your loved ones. And the courts, the third party, the courts help enforce it.
Mhm.
And we always say that that's the second option that you have, is creating a living trust is the first option. The second option, the first option you should do is create your own living trust, and you make the decisions on what you have want to have happen. There is no doubt. This is what
Mhm.
I want to have happen. This is what I want to
Spell
do.
it
This
out.
is who I
Spell
want
it
it
out.
to go to, right? And this is where the royalties, like the YouTube channel guy says, hey, if the YouTube channels exist after and it's there, I want a portion of that to stay in the trust, and I want to be able to get an annuity so my kids will have a lifetime income
I
of
think
money,
from the annuity. Yeah.
right? Of compound. I said, wow, what a great, what a great plan. So the living trust is a document that you decide on what to have happen. Now, most people that don't have a living trust. So if you're a homeowner and you have a little bit of anything, if you have anything that is yours and it's near and dear to your heart, you pass, the government can take it over, or the courts, and it's called probate, and they'll charge a fee to be able to do that. And I'm going to give you a story. We had a family a few months back, family of five. Her name is Rosa, and Rosa had a living trust that they paid an attorney for, but it was not funded. The so they paid, I think it was like $6,000 to create the living trust. They said, yeah, we had the living trust, we got it, and she passed. The kids came and said, you know what? We have to go to probate. The bank says we have to go to probate because the house is not in the living trust. And so I called the attorney and we said, hey, what happened? Why didn't you do that? And he says, no, no, no. I prepare the living trust. It's the trustee's responsibility to put the assets in the living trust. And that's when you have an aha moment and say, look, if you have assets, or if you have a home and it's not in the living trust, if it's not funded, reach out to us, we'll help you do it, right? But the attorneys say, we don't take that responsibility. That's too much, that's a lot more work, and people don't want to pay for it, so we don't do it. In our living trust and our services that you get, you use the software that creates the contract. It's kind of like a fill in the blanks, and then the contract spits it out. For every state has a different contract that has to be recognized for the state.
Mhm.
So I always tell people that it's two options, right? You have one, you have your plan where you decide what happens, or two, you do nothing and then and you're okay with the government deciding on what happens and then charging you for it. So Rosa had so the attorney had to go back. We went back, went to probate. There's a $50,000 charge that's going to happen for the estate. 50. So the kids just lost $50,000 of their inheritance because the trust was not properly funded. One. Two, the attorney says, don't worry, you don't need to give me any money up front. You can give me the money when you sell the house.
Mhm.
And they're like, wait a minute, where are we going to move to? This is our home, right?
Mhm.
Now they said, well, then you have to refinance. And once you get access to the house, you'll be able to decide on how you're going to pay me, but I'm going to put a lien on the house and there's no money there. Now
Oh, man.
imagine the kids, and if mom took care of all of this stuff and it was properly funded, they would have had a position. It would have saved $50,000 in attorney and court fees. And now they have, not only are they grieving for their mother, now they have this additional problem. And that's what having your plan in place really does for you, right? So think about that. So if you're a homeowner and you have kids, or if you're just, even if you don't have kids, if you're a homeowner and you want to protect your family, the first thing that you need to do is go to the website on the screen, and then we have a coupon, we have a code that's we use Ghost as a code. I wish we should have used Phantom, but we already prepared a savings code, and you could check out and save $1,000 on a lifetime estate plan. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about when it comes into the estate plan, most attorneys charge five. Like, what do they charge? It's anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. But here's the kicker: every time something happens, they charge another $1,200, $1,400.
Hmm.
So you get you want to update it. You want to, they don't fund it for you, but let's just say your daughter gets married to I call it the tattooed son-in-law, right? That is just, he's worth for three things: nothing, nothing, and nothing, right? But if she gets married to him, you wanna make sure that and something happens to her on your trust. You want to make sure
Doesn't
that
go to him.
it doesn't go to him; it goes to your grandkids,
Yeah.
right?
So you have to be directed. You have to direct where it's going to go.
That is correct. Yeah, and that's how powerful a living trust is. Because imagine that. I mean, we had a customer that had a case like that. The daughter and mother were in Puerto Vallarta. They got into a car accident. They didn't make it. The father called and told us that, hey, I need to get in there in the next 2 weeks to update my trust to make sure my grandkids get my daughter's inheritance when I pass. A week and a half later, just a few days before his appointment to update. Now he could have did it online, but he was not as tech savvy, and he felt
Hmm.
more comfortable us
In
assisting
person.
him.
Yeah.
Um, he got a heart attack and passed. And
Oh,
now
geez.
his son-in-law, at 34 years old, inherited several million dollars, well, half of several million dollars. And we could only pray that the kids end up with a little bit of it, right?
Yeah, but you
Um,
can't. It's not directed. They got to hope he gives it to him. It's not directed.
exactly, because now, because he is the wife, or he's the husband of the wife, all of their inheritance becomes community property. Now it all becomes
Yeah.
theirs.
So
And
the
so,
thing about the state prepping is that you can direct where the money's going to go. And like the famous case is like Prince.
oh, there,
You know,
yeah,
he didn't direct what was going to happen to all that music. And he has like tens of thousands of songs and videos and content that nobody, knows where. Well, he didn't direct where it was going. So now whoever's in charge of the state is deciding where that goes. But
well,
if he
imagine
had
that.
ideas of where it should go, we don't know because he didn't tell anybody where it should go.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that us as loan, as I call ourselves estate estate coordinators, right? Because we help you coordinate, we give you ideas, we don't give you any legal advice. We don't give legal advice because we're not attorneys. However, the software asks you enough questions that if you sat down and actually filled out a a living trust and you knew all the answers, you could probably do it in about 25 to 30 minutes. But we always tell people, don't rush through the decisions. Take your time, go through it. And if you're not 100% certain and comfortable with it, you know, put somebody's name temporarily and then move on, because you get, with our software at estate.prep.com, you get unlimited updates to your estate plan, unlimited, for the rest of your life. So if you're 30 years old and you live to be 70 or 80 years old, all of those changes are included in that fee.
Mhm.
So, which is, over time we accumulate, and it always says, right, we accumulate more things and more assets, things of value. I think in our 20s, we accumulate things that are depreciating assets. And then we
Mhm.
get wise at 35 and 40. Then we start doing things that accumulate assets that are positive, right? Instead of depreciating, that accumulate.
Yeah.
And so as we accumulate, we want to, one, fund them in, and then two, we always want to be able to update our living trust so that it doesn't have that. So yes, the coupon code is Ghost, and I call it savings code because you save $1,000 when you use it. So anybody that hears this podcast, that's on here as an appreciation to have us on as a guest, if you use our software, you get $1,000 savings using the checkout as Ghost. So, with that said, so back to living trust. So there's another misconception, very large misconception, um, that we see, and it's the difference between a will and a living trust.
Hmm.
Huge, because back in the day, it was like just get a will. All you need is a will. Protect yourself. Know what you want. Get a will. Well, with the technology that comes up and the verification and all the things that come up, the government said a will still has to go to probate. We're still going to decide that is just the person wishes, like instructions to the court to say, this is what I wish to have happen with my things. I wish my kids to get it. Well, that's how they take it. And I always say the best way I could describe a will is I love you and I give you everything, right? Because there's no details on who to give what and what it does. It's just a one-page document. It's simple. Most attorneys charge like $150 to $200 to be able to draw them up, but it says I give you anything that I own. I give it to you. However, but the you still have to go to probate. A living trust does not. It prevents probate. So that means it'll save your heirs and your beneficiaries headaches, give you peace of mind, and it prevents probate.
Yeah,
So
you were saying before the probate actually takes a fee.
yeah, well, probate, the attorney takes a fee, the courts take a fee, and then it takes, because they have to publish it. Now, in most states, they publish all your assets and says, hey, does Oscar Vasquez owe you money? If he owes you money, come forward. The court's going to pay you, right?
Mhm.
And then they distribute all your money. They say, okay, all these things are his. And they say, oh, this is so much money. You know what? If it's over X amount, we're going to auction it off for you. We're going to put it into receivership. We're going to auction it off for you. We're going to handle the money. We're going to pay everything that he owed off and then be able to do that into receivership because it becomes public. So that means everybody knows your business.
Mhm.
If you have a will, if you have a trust, it's private. Nobody knows what you owe. The assets gets transferred. The trustee gets transferred. It becomes very private, and you get peace of mind because they get assets. Now, one more thing that we didn't talk about on the probate. Probate and I can only say because a lot of the cases that I'm very familiar with that I've seen in here is cases in California. There's a case that they take on average from 8 to 18 months to be able to settle the estate. Imagine that.
Yeah,
Eight
that's a while.
18 months.
So you can't
Now,
use any money. You're saying
you
that
can't
locked,
everything is frozen.
everything's locked up.
Everything's locked up. So then you're like, now you're begging, you're borrowing, you're trying to survive to live to see the money, right? How do I do
Yeah.
that? We had a case we do because we do live workshops in the Los Angeles area. We always ask people who has a probate horror story or a probate story, who knows somebody that that went through probate or a family. And we had somebody last week that said that their family went through 8 years to settle the estate. 8 years.
Wow.
She said, you know what, we kept having cousins come up, we kept having people come up and say, hey, I was a relative, I borrowed money from them, I was there was money that's owed, and then they had to fight each one off so they didn't get their inheritance.
Yeah, they keep on fighting because everybody kept on coming up.
Is
Yeah.
it that, I mean, for not having an estate plan or a living trust in place, it's so important for the privacy and the peace of mind. One of the biggest things that I hear after people um, finish, or I call it a ceremony, when they sign their living trust documents, the first thing they say, you know what, I'm really glad I did this. I have such peace of mind now based off of knowing that my kids are good and my grandkids are going to be okay, and they have that. And I know that not some, no offense to the lawyers, but someone's not going to come in and say, you can pay me later when you sell the house and my kids are homeless, right?
Yeah, that's not what you want. So what's the typical cost to actually, of doing this type of thing, of actually
Yeah.
just doing the state?
In an estate plan, now there's different types of estate planning. And I'm gonna be as truthful and as transparent as I can. You can get an estate plan, that they call it an estate plan, but they give you the documents and you do it, and I call those are what's called a trust mill, where they get in the software, you do it, and that's it. They give you no instructions, no help, no anything, and that usually runs about $750 to $1,400. And then you have comprehensive living trusts like ours that usually run anywhere from 13 to 2,500, with that are non-attorneys. And then you have the second tier where you get into the legal, where you get into if you want to have an attorney, right? And it used to be that most of the people that are affluent, that are worth 2, 3, 4 million dollars, they would go there. Now we're getting more and more people that are worth 2 million, $3 million, because they say, just because I got it don't mean I got to spend it. People are a little bit more frugal and understanding, and saying, hey, I'm being educated about living trust. So the attorney fees start at about $33,000, 3,500 for a very, very bare basic. No derivatives, no powers of attorney. It's non-comprehensive, and the most comprehensive living trust I've seen attorneys charge about, the most I've seen them charge is $15,000 that I've heard. That an
Is that like
attorney.
that's not a one-time fee? Is that there's ongoing fees?
No, now you want to make a change. Now, here's another thing that is super important if you're considering a living trust. You have to understand that you cannot make changes to the living trust. You cannot edit the contract. Like, you can't go over there and scratch out somebody's name.
And change
You
it,
just
yeah.
can't do that. So what happens, the law states, and it's called a restatement. So every time the attorney charges for a restatement, it's another $1,400 to $2,000. So that means you get an extra child, or you get a child that passes, and now you want to say, hey, you know what?
Remove it, yeah.
They say their child is 10 years old, and now they're 30 and they passed and they have kids. Now you say, I want to update my living trust. My son John has passed, and I want his portion to go to his kids, and I want to exclude the mother, right? But I want it to go to the kids.
So it's more.
That's called a restatement. And so that restatement's another 2,500. With our software, you do that for free. Well, it's not, it's $129 software fee every year, but you only have to pay the software fee when you use it, when you need it, the one time. Because you'll have a login and password and say, hey, you need to update your membership. It's basically a membership to keep us compliant with every state in the land. Every state in the United States has different regulations.
And they may be changing them every year. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then when you restate it and you make an update on your living trust, it's called a restatement, it gets on there. So for example, you have the trust that you created in 2000. In 2024, you made changes, it goes on top of it. And then in 2025, you made another change, and now you have 3 stacks. So now your living trust started off at this stick, and now it's this stick, right? And so what happens when you pass, everybody that is a beneficiary or that was a beneficiary receives that copy when you're done, when you're passed, when you're done. When you die, everybody that's a beneficiary. So the executor, one of the executor's jobs is to give everybody a copy of the trust. So everybody knows what mom and dad wanted or what your wishes are. They're not, maybe it's what they are, right?
Yeah, exactly what you want. It's more
So
specified.
yeah, so it's so specific. then they get those copies. So then a lot of attorneys said, you know what, I'll do a comprehensive living trust. It'll be 5,000. And then they come back in 2 years and you need another update, or you need another update. It's another $2,000. That's why a lot of the attorneys don't tell you that if you need updates, what it's going to cost. They say, oh, we'll deal with it when you need it. You probably won't need anything anyways, but call me when you do.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you call them, you got to pay.
Well, because you're not, here's the thing, right? You got the tattooed nephew or the tattooed son-in-law that's going to inherit $1 million if you don't pay the 2,500. What are you going to do? You're going to pay the 2,500.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, so
plus you probably have to update like your logins and stuff. Like if you like, because of hackers and stuff, people change things. So I'm assuming you have to pay.
What you do. Yeah, no, you don't put your login. You don't put in your login on your trust. You put in the account.
So you don't have to do the logins there.
Yeah, like you would say, like every account has an account number. So, for example, it would say Facebook, Oscar Vasquez, and then it has a number. That's my account number.
So that's good enough.
And that's good enough because with your trust, that's the legal document that you give to Facebook and say, hey, that was left to me by my dad, and here's the trust.
So you don't need to know the login. Once they do that, they'll transfer it over.
You don't want to do it because the login and passwords, if somebody were to break in, it were to get into a fire, or for whatever reason,
office, or they get in that document, then they can access it.
Yeah, you can access it. So it needs to identify who the beneficiaries are, and then it needs to identify the assets. And then you say, here, it's account number so and so. That's private. So we always tell them, when you're identifying social media accounts or media accounts or monetized accounts, we always say, what's the account numbers, and then what's that account number, and then they have to use the living trust document saying, hey, I'm the beneficiary of it. Here's a death certificate, and here is.
So then they have the legal obligation to give you access with that level without having to have the stuff that could let somebody hack in or somebody get in.
That is correct.
Yeah, because you don't want the problem with data today. People are having data leaks all the time. I'm an IT guy. So people like your health insurance company's leaking out your social security number all the time because they're getting hacked. They're not securing your stuff.
Yeah. So with that helps you with the living trust, and those are the things. So those are the biggest costs. So I always tell people this, for our website, we probably get about 2,500 visitors, and people pay $2,500 for a lifetime access to our software every single time. If you're fortunate enough to be a podcast listener here, take advantage of the discount code that says GHOST and go to estate.prep.com. Now, if you have questions that you want to arrive and know, can a living trust help you? We have a receptionist 24 hours a day. It's 805-909-4689. That's 805-909-4689. It's an artificial intelligence operator, but she's pretty smart. She's got it. She's got it. She helps us with a lot of it. She can answer a lot of questions. She doesn't give legal advice, but give us a call. We'll be more than happy to be able to give you a rundown. But the most important thing, get yourself a living trust. If you're a homeowner, get a living trust. If you have young kids, get a living trust, because, and I don't know in every state, but if something were to happen to both parents, the child goes into a social services. It goes into social services. And so that's equivalent to sending your kid to jail, right?
Yeah, well, that's not probably where you want your kid going.
Yeah, so you want to have a guardianship plan in place. and that comes with a comprehensive plan. I know we're getting short, so I want to tell you what all comes in. You get a comprehensive living trust, you get powers of attorney, you get executive trustees, you also get a guardianship plan for your young children if you have them. Now you have that. Now, any and all documents that are needed in the estate planning, you can be able to do that and have that on there. Absolutely comes with it, and a comprehensive with unlimited updates as long as you pay the small membership fee on an annual basis.
I think it's really important that people realize, because like we said at the beginning, there's a lot of people think it's like, well, I got to be like millionaire to have an estate, but that's not the case. Because like you could have assets, like you said, you have collections. People have coin collections, they have stamp collections, they have comic book collections, they have whatever memorabilia, and and then maybe they don't. Maybe they want their grandkid to have it, but they
Right.
don't write that anywhere down. It's not written down. So like, well, who's going to have it if you don't? You like if your pop could have like all these classic records. Like it could have like tons of James Brown, a bunch of stacks, a bunch of really good original records, and records are worth money.
Sure.
Nobody puts it down. It's like, well, nobody knows where it's going.
The most interesting asset that I had to transfer and put into a living trust was a fragrant. I called it perfumes, and the guys, the women and the men, no, these are fragrances. And I said, well, what's the difference between a perfume and a fragrance? Isn't that just? He goes, no, it's a fragrance when you pay more than $150 per fragrance.
Mhm. Oh, wow.
So and they had about $10,000 worth of fragrances in their
Wow, that's a
collection.
big collection. So
That is a
you
big
never know
collection.
you never know what people collect, and people collect all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I said, and these do they expire? She says, no, these are higher end fragrances, because I started to use the word. Oh, these are you want to add perfumes? Because no, they're fragrances.
They had to correct you, like, yeah, what people they're into their knowledge zone, but
Yeah, right.
they have their certain thing. People are like they collectors of all kinds of things. It
Yeah,
could be.
and so the most important thing I think is protect your family by getting a living trust today. Protect it and have peace of mind. That's it, man.
Yeah,
That's
because
it.
people have like their stocks, their bonds. They could have like actual physical
Retirement
coins.
accounts.
Yeah, coins.
I'll give you an example where we had a customer about a year ago. Here he had a 401k. He got into a truck accident. In a work truck. It was a work accident, but the wife was in the hospital. She had to take leave from work, and they didn't have access to any more money. They ran out of savings. So they had to get access to his 401k. Now you can get access to your 401k or 401k or your retirement. One, if you become disabled, incapacitated,
Yeah,
or
even
you get
insurance policies
59
too.
and a half, right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
have that insurance policy. They wouldn't have given she was the he because he put the trust and she was the power of attorney. She had got access to that money,
oh
and
wow,
so she was able to stay at home and live off of that. And it was enough where till he got better and got back on his feet, was a total of 9 months. Imagine not having any income and living on your savings for 9 months, right?
yeah,
But the peace of mind that they had the ability to do that because they had a living trust and they were able to protect it. They were able to protect them and get access to it. Other than that, if she was only the beneficiary and it was not in the living trust, the only way she can get access to that money was if he died.
yeah. If beneficiaries only if you die, like you don't have a right to take a like in the insurance policy. Sometimes they have the ability to do partial surrender, where you can actually do full surrender. You can take loans, but that
That's
might
right.
only be if you're the insured. The
That is
beneficiary
correct.
might not have the ability to do that.
That's right. So if you put it, if you and we do that with a lot of index universal life policies that we help people create, is we always say put the living trust as the beneficiary and as the co-owner of it or the owner of the policy.
Yeah, if they're a co-owner, then they have a right as an insured, right? Because they're
That's
co-insured.
right.
If
So
you're a
the
co-insured, then you can do it.
yes, because you're the insurer, but you're the co-owner or the beneficiary, because you are the beneficiary for living benefits. If you die, then the beneficiary of the death benefit gets it. But the living benefits of an index universal life is where you can borrow money against your policy, or get money or get that income if you become disabled, is
Yeah.
also another benefit. But you're correct. If you have that money, and it's accessible, and you're only the beneficiary and it's not in the living trust, you won't have access to it. So we
Yeah.
always tell people, one of the assets that we always recommend is that you have your life insurance and have it the beneficiary and be the co-owner or the trustee of that is your living trust, so you can be have access to it if something were to happen to your spouse.
What happened with like crypto? Is
Yeah,
crypto under the same
crypto.
rules?
I I've given instructions. I've never done it because some the people that have the crypto are very secretive of their key, right?
Yeah, the keys
I
are
don't
like really
understand.
like locked down. Like
Yeah, yeah. That's, I guess, like, just tell me how to do it, bro. And I said, okay, here, you got to identify the account, identify it, and then who and what do they do now with crypto? They put that into the account. They just say the account number, and I don't know how he actually did that without disclosing it, because it's got to be written down somewhere.
yeah, because those keys are like those
Yeah.
are the keys.
No,
So I
no,
don't know
he
if
has
crypto.
it's a key that has numbers that change all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then
Some of
when
them
he
are very like they're very tight. Like, so how do you get access to that? Yeah,
I don't know if you pass. I don't know how. I mean, I gave him the biggest instruction, but I did have somebody that had. He wouldn't tell me. He didn't say how much he had, but it was enough for it to be so private. He wouldn't. He didn't. None of his family knows. But let's just say he hasn't worked in 10 years.
these crypto things are crazy because like sometimes the numbers go from
Yeah,
like Bitcoin being 50,000 a coin to 100,000. And if
yeah,
you had how many coins and it jumps like that, like
yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Well, he was in for a long time, and it was a substantial amount, and so then my recommendation to him was start turning that into cash, start turning some of that into cash, so you can buy some real estate and some assets that you can
Yeah.
disclose and you can give.
Might be easier to move. Like you start thinking about moving that into a trust than
Well,
like the
they have
crypto.
to yeah, they have to disclose that though,
Yeah.
and they don't want to give the key. I mean, if they don't give up the key, no one has access
No,
to it.
no one
And
knows
the
what.
guy said, if I lose the key, the money stays there forever.
Yeah, it's just out there. Yeah, some people have like horror stories of losing their key because they
Wow.
put it on a computer and the computer crashed,
Wow.
and then they didn't put it anywhere other than the computer, and they can't get the computer back, and they lost it. And it's like that's a lot of money to lose. It's like you better make
Yeah.
sure you got that key somewhere.
That is just nuts. But so that was my recommendation. I said, man, look, and start taking some of that money out if you got enough. And if it's over $5-10 million, then bro, pay the taxes, take the income, and then try to buy some real estate or put it into a fixed index annuity, start buying some insurance
Something that has
policies.
like a more like asset that's like easier,
Traditional.
traditional to
Well,
actually be able to move to somebody. Like if you're
yeah.
thinking if you got something you want to have in a trust, they make it so that it can be in the trust.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, and I didn't want to, and I'm just saying, he goes, yeah, but I'm making money on it. Well, listen, man, listen.
As long as you're around. But if the whole point is to give it to somebody else, then somebody has to know what it is.
When you're not here is what the trust is,
It's
not
about.
for you, it's for your people that you love.
Yeah, yeah. So you got to be a little bit transparent. Like if you're actually gonna move it, then you got to let it go a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a hard thing because people get caught up in that secrecy. Because I think that's our whole world is they like it. They like that.
Right.
But like if you're gonna move it to the visible world instead of the invisible world, then you got to make it visible.
Yeah, you do.
But yeah, it's an interesting, concept because a lot of times, creative people, like we get hung up with bad contracts where we don't get paid what we should get paid. And then
Right.
then we probably don't think about the assets that we have. Like, because in terms of like a lot of things, like we've got these, our assets are MP4s, WAV files, virtual things. They're sitting on platforms like Spotify and
Do
Apple and stuff like that. So you got to make
right.
sure that you actually, hand those down.
Let me ask you this: if you have a WAV file, don't they have a digital file number? Is
Oh
that
yeah, the WAV
how you
files have numbers.
identify that?
Yeah, yeah, they have numbers. And
Right. So that's
most
how
of our
you would
files,
identify it.
yeah, most of it, like as a musician, most of my stuff, right, actually has like almost like how library books have ISBN numbers. But
Yeah.
every music song that's ever been registered with your BMI or they're registered with a
Uh-huh.
pro organization, they actually have like a number.
Oh, okay.
So
Like a
every song
barcode
I've ever
number.
written has an actual like legal number showing that I wrote it
Oh,
and I'm
nice.
the songwriter and I own the master and I own the royalties. So like when I get the royalties on it, but that stuff can get handed down. And you have to hand down like the list. So I've got like 4,000 songs that each will have a number. So there's like this, it's like an Excel file that
Right.
that actually BMI has, and they send me the file. And
Wow.
somebody could get access to my BMI account and then see. So I gave my wife and my
The-
daughter like
the-
access to that.
and that's why attorneys don't like to move assets because they get a customer like you, 4,000 files. They're like, dude, this
Yeah, that's
is
a lot of work.
that's a lot of work. But
Yeah,
listen, if it doesn't, you don't know where those assets are going to be, but that's the work that keeps on giving. Like we're writing a book, right? If a book is
yeah,
good, look at, I mean, what's that? Win friends and influence people. How long? I mean, I hear people recommending that book, and the author's been dead like 20, 40 years.
yeah. Well, books keep on going, and they got to hope the estate, did it go to the estate they wanted to do? You got to hope so, because
You'd hope so. You'd
I hope
hope
that the
so.
author actually gave it to his family, or did it go to the dog foundation?
Yeah, really.
Like, well, but if that's where you wanted it to go, that's where it goes. But like, because they sometimes just say like, "Well, I gave it to the church," so the whole
Yeah,
thing's going to the church. Like, well, that's where it's going. That's what
yeah,
happened.
that is funny, but yeah, that is just something that you know what, if you have any kind of assets, protect them, get a living trust, take action. At the very least, I always tell people, there's an interesting statistic that got me super excited when I started here. 68% of America does not have an estate plan. And um I always ask myself, why is that? And I truly believe down deep in my heart, it's not that they don't want an estate plan, they don't know that it exists. And I
Yeah,
think
they
by
don't know.
doing
They
these
don't think
podcasts,
need it. They don't think they need it either.
and they don't think they need it or they can afford it. And now at the $2,500 retail price, I mean, it's very, we have options on there where you can even get a payment plan. They got a 0% interest payment program that you can get through PayPal, and there's all kinds in there. So 68% of Americans don't realize that, or don't know. Now, if you've heard this podcast, if you're watching this podcast, now you know. You can't unknow.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
you know. Now you know it exists, right? And now you know. Now it's up to you to take the
Your
action.
opportunity. Yeah, well, this
Yeah,
is an opportunity. The 68%, that's your opportunity every day. You can you pull into that, pull from that. And
that's
that's like
right. And
your
we do
customer
this by
base.
doing, yeah. And we're doing that by doing awareness. We're doing these podcasts is for people to be aware and know, because once you know, you can't unknow,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Once
well,
you
that's the
see it, you
thing,
can't
like,
unsee it, right?
yeah, it's not a known unknown. It's a know it.
Yeah. And so then it takes it there, and then I would say that it's never too late. It's until you're in the ground.
Oh yeah,
or
but
you
it's
become
always similar.
incapacitated. When you become incapacitated, it's too late. You can't do anything
Yeah,
else.
you can't make a decision. You want to make sure you can do it while you're still like
Yeah.
able to make a decision.
And I'll share this story. I had one of our real estate agents got called on a Thursday um, from a client, and they said, "Hey, you know what? This guy he's in the hospital. He's still conscious, and he wants to get his living trust done." They went in, they they added the wife and they added the kids, and they did the living trust. They literally did the living trust in 2 days. They went in with the notary and witnesses on a Sunday, got it signed, and the man passed away on that Wednesday. But the family saved hundreds of thousands of dollars because they transferred all the real estate properties that Monday into the trust. And
Perfect.
it's only a piece of software can make that. That's a software, I would say, success story, because an attorney would have never got it done that quick. It would have never been done that quick. But they sat down. They took a laptop. They got all the property profiles. They got all the property information, and he made it simple. That, hey, he gave special instructions to the kids. They were all there, and this is what I want. Um, and they made it happen. And it was, I would say, that was probably the most satisfying story that I've heard so far, right? And I say so far because we're starting this journey of helping people protect their assets, but hearing that story, not satisfying in the sense that the man died,
Yeah.
satisfying in the sense that the family, the kids, the people that lived saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in probate fees and headaches that the
Well, yeah, you
transfer.
want your family to be taken care of, and some people think, life insurance or their stock options or their whatever they had there, and they think they may have spelled out who the beneficiary is, but they didn't realize there's probate, right? And people don't want to, it's like insurance. People don't like talking about it. And people don't maybe have enough coverage. My dad
Yeah.
was an insurance agent for years, 30
Uh-huh.
years, prudential insurance agent. He was always having that conversation that people really don't want. But
Yeah.
they have to. It's like you have to do the same thing. It's like people don't want to think about their death. Like if you're a life insurance agent, you got to get people saying, "Hey, you have to think about it."
Well, I always tell people there's two things that are guaranteed in life. Two things. One is that we're going to pay taxes. Doesn't matter. We're going to pay taxes. And two, we're all going to die.
Yeah,
Right? We're all going to die. It's just a matter of if it's instantly or it's going to be prolonged, and we're
down the
all going to
road,
have
further down the
that
road.
time. But it's never too late. Always, if you're a homeowner, this is a must have. If you're a parent, a single parent with young children, it's definitely a must have to have at least a guardianship plan in place to be able to protect your child and be able to prevent them from going into social services or getting into the hand of social services.
You're going to the person that you didn't really want them to go to. Like if you want to spell it out, like if you got
Yeah.
grandparents and there's certain grandparents you want them to go to versus other ones, if you
Or
don't
the
spell it out, you might
yeah.
go to the grandparent you didn't want them to go to.
I had a story real quick. I'm laughing because I was remembering. I was like talking with a couple, and I said, "Well, what about any uncles, aunts?" He goes, "Are you kidding?" He says, "Every one of his brothers are all drunks. I don't want my kids with those drunks." And
Yeah,
I
so they
was
got to
like,
use the money to pay their bar tab.
"Yeah, yeah."
Yeah,
No, but it's just funny because they said, well, then you could exclude them in the trust. You can exclude, say these people are excluded
yeah.
from
Well, that's what's
being.
important because like family's family, but certain family might not be the family you want your kid going to.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
don't go to church and they drink a lot.
yeah. There's
I don't
there's
want my kid there.
certain members of your family like you want to direct here, not there, right? So that everybody's got that. They don't want to talk about it, but like when you get to the critical points, there's sometimes you got to talk about the things you don't talk about, right?
Right.
And so when this is where people like it's eye opening, you're like, yeah, you got to make decisions, like because a non decision is a decision. It's going to probate, and they're going to decide. Right?
Right.
So that people, if people want to have control over their lives, and everybody say, no, I want to have more control, then you got to take the wheel, right? And talk to you, going to estate.prep.com. We got the link there. That's going to be fully clickable on the
Yep.
podcast. So we're kind of at the end of the show today, but we do want to recommend people, like we have estate.prep.com and this /checkout page that is fully clickable in the podcast description of everywhere the podcast is being heard or viewed. Right now we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. In the description on those channels, you'll be able to click right through to that. As we said, there's a ghost coupon, and we did have this other number here, the 805-909-4689 AI chat line type thing. So you can check that out. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Like the Ghost podcast. It's always cool to listen to the advice we get or the information we get from the people who are on the show. Today we have somebody providing the service. So this is what we bring to the listeners and the viewers. And I want to thank you for taking your Saturday to talk to us. But thank you.
No, thank you for having me. And once again, if I could leave you guys with anything, take action. If not, ask around who you know that has gone through probate. Once you hear somebody's story, that'll get you. If that doesn't get you off the chair, you're never going to get off the chair. But that's pretty scary stuff. Thank you very much, Phantom. Thank you so very much. Happy New Year to you and to all your audience. And take advantage of the coupon. It's only for the first 10 clients. So the first 10 clients that use that coupon code will be able to save $1,000 while using the lifetime access to estate.prep.com. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.